I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee, Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025 at 5:02 PM. So with roll call, Alder Galvin.
Here.
Alder Johnson.
Here.
Alder Hinkfist.
Here.
And myself are present. Entertain motion approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. On to regular business. Number one, consideration with possible action on a request for 180-day planning option to Keller Inc. for approximately 9 acres of land located on Erie Road, parcel 21-199.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to number two, consideration with possible action on the approval of the Medstad MS 500 UTV unit for the Green Bay Fire Department for a total of $89,014.90. Any questions for staff?
Maybe one.
Yeah, go ahead, Alder Johnson.
Fire Chief, I mean, so we're looking to essentially pre-order this. Looks about 2 years out.
Correct.
Looking to sell the one that we have. Just, what's wrong? I mean, you know, obviously, we've got a lot of demands in the CIP, and so that's
Right.
why I'm just trying to kind of even look at the small stuff, like what's wrong with the one we have? What doesn't it do?
Yeah, our current one is 10 years old. That's we're looking at like, you know, and again, now a 2-year lead time. So, you know, we're trying to just cycle these out before we have maintenance nightmares with them. We've already put a lot of money into maintenance for our current one. The older design that we have is a dual rear axle, so it's very difficult to navigate and turn around in. This allows more flexibility, more maneuverability, and then update it throughout. So like I said, our current one, we're hoping to get a good return on our investment, be able to sell this at a premium, and then turn that around to reduce the cost of this overall. We've actually worked with, purchasing has helped us. We've tried to actually do a trade-in with it, and the manufacturer wasn't interested in that, but we still hope to be able to auction this or sell it outright and be able to recoup some of that. And this is in our CIP this year.
How often does this get used, and like, where does it get used?
Yeah, so this is used at all our special events. So we talked about like the runs, we use it at the draft, the marathons, and then predominantly at Packer, at the Lambeau Field, the stadium.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
I mean, I'll offer the second, but then I'm gonna make a motion to amend.
Okay.
Just because
Okay,
Alder
go
Hinkle's got
ahead.
ahead of me. I would make a motion to amend so that the approval, like the bonding that occurs for the new unit doesn't accounts for the trade-in. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
the
Yeah,
difference, you mean?
yeah, that
So if we
was
sell
our-
it for 50,000, we're
Yep.
basically approving the difference
difference, yeah.
for
Correct.
I
the
think it's fair.
bond in 2 years,
Yep.
right?
You plan to sell it now, even though you're not getting it for 2
No, we
years?
would have to sell it when we get it.
So how is that?
Right, it would be, we'd have to, because we still use it.
Right, but we're just obligating the bonding for 2 years from now, essentially.
So adjust
We're
it
making
once
an
it's-
assumption on
Okay.
the resale of what you're
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, then we're voting on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously, then motion to approve is amended.
Do you have a dollar amount you want to approve?
What's
You
that?
just want the difference to
Yeah, just
be
the
displayed.
difference. Sure. So we would, whatever the resale, what the reseller will want for, we'd be able to reduce that amount
Right.
of bonding.
Does it, sorry, I didn't mean to complicate this, but does it help you, Diana, if you have an actual number instead of an assumption around what the sale value will be?
Well, we wouldn't use that for today, but, you know, in a really couple months when we are looking for the, oh, but that's going to be a 27 borrowing?
It's allocated for this year, but yeah.
How
we
many
would
months
actually-
did you say out the?
20 to 22.
So at that point, that sounds like that would be a 27 borrowing, not a
Right.
26 borrowing.
And what I'm trying to get at here, right, is that we're not authorizing us to bond whatever the number
Right.
is, 90,000 in that year. We're only really authorizing the difference, so is that 50,000, 60, I don't know.
And you've not.
And I think, I mean, the bonding that was part of the approved bonding for this year is where we didn't anticipate there'd be a 20-month delivery.
So you have the money?
So we have the
Yeah.
money now.
Oh, you're saying it's a 2025.
Yeah.
You said it was in
Yeah,
his
so it's
budget.
already
Yeah, it's in his
bonded for,
budget.
it's already in the
And you
bond.
have the money?
Correct, but we would be able to reduce it, much like all our other trade-ins. Just our future bonding needs would be less because we have all that money already
So it'd
allocated.
be applied to something.
Right.
So we're paying interest for 2 years for something we don't have.
I'll
That could be
refer to finance.
repurposed.
Yeah,
That could be repurposed for something that either is needed now or that would be in the 2026 borrowing. You could use current dollars. And again, part of that is because of the change from going from bonds to notes. Notes probably says, if I would go read it, it probably says fire equipment. It probably doesn't say what kind of
Right.
equipment it is, probably just fire, it's emergency safety equipment. So there, to not sit another year with not spending these dollars, we could potentially replace it with something that's in his 26 request, which will be coming back later this year for 80. I'm not sure the dollar amount that we have. We could take it off.
Isn't this getting very complicated, the way, and this only seems to be fire, which
right.
makes me wonder.
Yeah, all our apparatus are like long lead times, right? And this is yet another piece of fire apparatus that has extensive lead time. So we have been,
Well,
like our-
isn't this a UT,
it's a
four-wheel
custom.
drive off-road vehicle or
But it's,
something?
yeah, it's a custom enclosed ambulance UTV, so it is a special piece of.
So it is enclosed?
Correct.
It's not like at
Correct.
the games where they
No.
would strap them on the stretcher on the back?
Right, this is like, but that's enclosed, has an enclosed box like the one we have currently there.
It just seems, and I know there's some ongoing litigation in the
correct,
state,
correct.
and I don't know if we're part of that or not, but this seems like it's more and more becoming more and more ridiculous that we have to now take out a loan for almost $90,000. We can't spend the money, and we just don't want it to sit in a bank, so we'll offset it by using it for something that we need now, and then, this is, how much, Director Ellenbecker, how much of a nightmare does this create for your staff to be shuffling this money around like this?
We just try to keep a lot of notes in a spreadsheet.
I mean,
It's in a balance sheet, right? I mean,
it's in a balance sheet, but is the balance
Yeah.
sheet going from 100 pages
I mean,
to
we
200
can't change
pages
that.
because of this?
And our general ledger has project numbers that we attach. So when the money was borrowed for in 2025, we have a specific project number. I can see that was attached to it. So those dollars are sitting there specifically for this UTV.
I
And
know,
so,
but what else do we do?
so, I mean, this is partly why I wanted to make that amendment, right? Because I've seen this happen all too often where we've over bonded for something, and then the money sits in an account, doesn't do anything for us, or all of a sudden, right, it's like, oh, I got this project, it was unbudgeted, but I have this unspent money here that we already bonded for, right? And what I'm trying to do is avoid that, and it sounds like that's
Yes.
already happened, which I didn't realize. So that makes me, of course, just rescind my whole motion because it's irrelevant now. If we have to follow proper procedure, I would motion to reconsider.
And so we're paying this company.
I think this agreement is actually paid on delivery.
Then why are we bonding now for it?
Yeah, and again, like
So it needs approval
our
for
large
hiring?
apparatus, we do it where we actually seek approval early.
Because
and
you
then
have to give them
bond.
some money down, right?
We don't, but that's like, this, we never anticipated this long of a lead time. So this long lead time for this piece of apparatus is totally different than our normal fire apparatus. Our normal fire apparatus, we know that we have a long lead time, so we seek approval before and then plan for the bonding in 3 years or whatever, the year we expect delivery. So we have
Right.
put no money down, we just get approval, we sign the agreements, and then move that forward. So we have that system down.
Okay.
This is kind of that one-off that kind of caught us off guard with the extensive lead time also. But like I said, this is something that we will not be purchasing for another 10
So the
years.
funding source is already secured. The only reason it's in front of us is because it's a purchase over 50,000. So either we approve the purchase or we don't, and it simplifies all of this, quite frankly. So, motion to reconsider.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, motion for the reconsideration?
Aye.
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 Opposed, that passes unanimously.
And then it just really kind of goes back to Alder Hinkvist's motion, which was the motion to
To
approve.
approve, okay. And did I have a second for that?
Second.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that carries passes
So
unanimously.
Chief, you gotta start with that. Bonding's
will.
authorized, it's
All right,
already
in
authorized.
10 years, when I start with this again, I'll do that, I promise.
Well, and the intent
Yeah.
was that you were just gonna order it and get it this year.
Correct.
You thought it was
You
gonna
bet.
be here.
Right. It shouldn't-
That's what I
yeah.
thought.
Yep.
Okay. Then on to number 3, consideration with possible action on the approval of ballistics gear for the Green Bay Fire Department for a total cost of $123,958.90, funded by the EMS funding
It's funded.
assistance program grant.
Who is this organization that's funding it?
This is through the state. This is a state program, kind of almost like a revenue sharing, almost. Previous calculations have, this year we've received over $400,000 as part of this funding assistance program.
Okay, and are we going with a local dealer here, or?
Correct.
Awesome.
Yep. So Nelson Tactical is able to meet this, is part of the a cooperative purchasing agreement, part of the national master agreement with the state of Wisconsin. So it's a local firm we're purchasing from, and we've had a long relationship with them.
And how many people will this put armor on?
This will outfit, we're just doing by riding position, not necessarily per person. So it's riding position, all the apparatus, plus all our special events too.
Well, I guess when you say riding apparatus, so anybody who's in a rig, which is basically, what, 75-80% of your department will now have ballistic armor?
Well, so like engine 2, for example, we'll have actually 5 sets of equipment on there. And so just whoever's on it that day will be able to utilize that.
So they don't have their individual?
Correct.
So
We
this
don't
is-
wear them 100% of the time. These are for those active scenarios.
So they put it on as needed?
Correct.
And it's kind of a generic size?
Correct. Correct. And we did it this way because again, we're able to buy 130 sets versus probably the 240 we would need if we did it to fund all our special events and everything else too, so.
All right, thank you.
Great work on another grant.
Mhm.
Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Number 4, consideration with possible action on the draft of the 2026-2030 capital improvement plan. So we are up to well, if we go in order of the report, DPW, am I correct, would be first?
Correct.
Director, okay.
If you'd like, I will put it up on the screen.
Yes, that would be
Yes.
wonderful.
Sorry, which one?
DPW. Because we did police and fire last time.
That's what I was trying to find too.
It's only like the fourth or-
3
Yeah, I
CIP
was gonna
summary.
say.
The fourth?
All right. At this point, at this point, we have the 5-year plan up in front of us for the DPW. I know the director's in the room, if she would
Yeah.
like to speak to her requests.
Are you ready for the interrogation?
I'm
Well,
ready. Do you want me to go through it, or do you want to go one by one? What is the preference?
What do you guys, do you want to brief
I think we've
overview?
done the other ones, maybe we've asked questions, but also given you the ability to highlight notable
Major.
things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we don't need to talk about every single, right, line item.
Right. So I'll just give a little overview. So for our capital equipment, we did increase our request overall in years past. I think, they were trying to maintain the status quo, and just with the aging equipment, we increased that by $1 million from our previous year's request. So that is a little higher, and we do have a priority of our equipment request if we need to go through that. We did include, our typical resurfacing, reconstruction, streets, and so that's in line with previous years. And we've had conversations with Green Bay Water Utility to make sure we're balancing their needs and their budget limitations. And we put in $1 million for mill and pave, and we have some streets identified, but the remainder of the streets would be identified after we get our PASER ratings finalized. And there are projects listed for our bridges. However, we're using fund balance for that. We had enough revenue come in from state aid and then just fund balance so we don't have to bond for any of that. And then our parking utility and stormwater and sanitary sewer utility, there's nothing notable there. It's similar to prior years.
So the mill and pave, you've only got it in 1 year. Is that because all of the possible candidates for that will be done in the first year? Or is it something you anticipate doing?
It's something we anticipate doing forward. We just didn't have numbers there projected out.
So that would be one request I'd have is, to make this report as useful as possible. I think it helps us to see what capital improvements really are for the full 5 years. I'm happy to hear about the equipment, because I think if there's one thing we all heard during the last budget term is DPW's equipment is in really rough condition, and so that was one of the questions I had here, wanting to make sure that you're identifying those needs more quickly. Obviously, the big challenge we're going to have is recognizing what our bonding limit is. We're not going to be able to do it all, but at least if we've got it documented that this is a high priority need for you, then at least we can have that discussion. So thank you for doing that. The one thing I would say around the asphalt that I wanted to point out, because obviously if there's one thing we all hear, streets, streets, streets. The mill and pave will certainly help with that. It's hard to sometimes visualize this because the reconstructs are, it's difficult, right, to understand maybe how much of that is constituting the total road work we're doing. But the maintaining of the asphalt, I don't want to just arbitrarily throw increases out there if we don't have the right streets, the right candidates timed with other types of work. But I do want to ask the question if it's reasonable to suggest that that number should go up every year in order for us to get caught up, to a level that's acceptable by the taxpayers.
Yeah, so part of the streets that are in the worst condition are streets on the reconstruct list. And we are somewhat limited because we have to coordinate with the utilities. So it's, stormwater, sanitary, sewer utility, but also Green Bay water utility, which, so we're trying to balance the streets that are, going for reconstruct with how much water main that they're gonna have to replace as well.
So is that where maybe an allocation to the mill and pave makes more sense?
Well, the mill and pave is used for your streets that are in, I believe, like the 6 to 7 range, so they're not the worst condition.
But could they be bad condition if the underground utilities are not scheduled for another 10 years?
So we would do mill and pave on the streets that are in that 6 to 7 range, and if they don't have the utilities. Because if you're getting into the poorer pavement, then we're going into resurfacing.
Okay.
For those streets.
Got it.
So there's a kind of the reconstructs, resurfacing, and mill and pave. And if we need to do utility work, it's kind of falling in that reconstruct category.
Okay, so even if, because resurfacing, and thinking back to a conversation I occurred at IMS recently, mill and pave, it was suggested should still last 10 years, I believe, whereas resurfacing should last 15 to 20.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers.
Yeah, okay. Bottom line is, right, I think the mill and pave, the million is expanding
Right.
really what we do. So if at least we're showing some additional allocation to mill and pave throughout all 5 years, I think to me that demonstrates that we're trying to allocate more funding to expand the road work that we're doing in our community. And I think that's what we all want to be able to be able to tell our residents that we're investing in the areas that they want to see us investing in.
Yeah, so for example, this year we did 17 streets within the mill and pave program, plus the one that recently went through, I think, was Grandview. So that was about 18. So there was, that added quite a bit for the money.
When you're saying resurface and reconstruct, and then there's mill and pave, I'm looking here, I don't see anything listed as resurfacing. Is that listed under a different language?
Yeah, it's under asphalt resurfacing local shops.
Asphalt first?
Yeah.
It's on the screen.
Under the A.
Second.
All right, and then I guess my other comment is kind of like what Alder Johnson alluded to. When you look at the totals at the bottom of each year, you're 33 million this year, 22, and then way down to 17, 12, 11. That's, I mean, I know it's not always easy to look into the future.
Right.
But that doesn't give us an accurate, because I'm sure, I just can't see that that's what, you know, you're really saying that's all we're gonna need in the future. And so for us that make our decisions, it helps us to see what you really are trying, and I know, again, it's crystal ball work sometimes, but trying to anticipate what you think you're going to be having to, you know, need in the next 5 years. So it helps us to make a decision at this time.
Like, I think under that mill and pay budget, I'd rather see $1 million held every year than have $1 million and then 4 years of zero,
Right.
right? Even if we don't know if that'll be the exact number, we know it'll be
Right.
something.
Can I ask, I know this is very time consuming and it takes a lot of time for them to put it out in there, and it is a forward look. Would it be something that at some point they could have like more of a generic line, kind of like the mill and pave, or could she also have an asphalt line that then, you know, maybe 1 year it's 4 million and then 4.5 and then 5, would that be something, or do you want to see the actual lines, because it is very detailed and forward looking?
You mean like,
Kind of like a generic line more when you start getting into 28, 29, and 30, kind of just have a dollar amount locked in, so that the totals, to Alder Johnson's point, Alder Gavin's point, that, you know, the number keeps dropping off. But really, we have at least as many needs or more needs as you keep going out there. Could they, in the future, like, kind of have just an asphalt or basically a reconstruction line, and just have a total in there until they get all the details in place?
But my understanding is, to a certain extent, the Department of Public Works has, and I mean, as they list the reconstruct streets, they actually list the individual streets because they've identified them.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that there's many more that you've identified with that rating system that you have. And I, you know, because it's just like, we know, it's like the fire department, man, that you know that every X years, there's gonna be a new rig that they're gonna be asking for, a new ambulance, you know, and so I think that makes it easy for them to set up how much they're gonna be needing in the future, long
Well,
term.
and I think, Director, is that what you mean? Instead of her spelling out each road right now, you kind of have an idea in 2027, these possibly at this point, 10 roads, I could give you a sum, so a
Oh, I see
line
what you're
item
saying.
versus
Instead of
spelling
listing-
out, because that would get really, our report would get really long
Right,
because
so
each
instead
year
of
would have
listing
to
every
be.
street, you could
Right,
say,
kind of a plot.
this
around.
year,
Reconstruct.
yeah,
Yeah,
reconstruction, we're gonna list every
I think
street for
that's
this next
helpful.
year, but in 2027, we know that roughly we would like to, you know, and yeah, I think that would give us a better
Mm-hmm.
idea.
well, and that's, in fairness, right, that's what Steve was always concerned about, because things can fluctuate from year to year, and if he puts the full 5 years in here, then people are saying, my street's gonna be done in 2030,
Yep.
and then it doesn't happen, right? Because so much has occurred in that 5-year period. But I do think having,
A general line.
I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I still think you probably have a departmental CIP to some extent, where you know when certain streets are gonna land, but I think I'd be okay if it's like, hey, this year, or this next year, even the next 2 years, these are the streets we're gonna do, but then it's like a holding number after that, so long as you've got the detail internally with your department.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Because I don't want to look at this and go, well, geez, you only need 11 million in the last year of this 5 years, so couldn't we shift some of this stuff over to that? And inside you're probably going, no.
Right, right.
You know,
It's pretty much, you know, every year there's
Right,
things, yeah.
exactly.
Because the last thing I want is that staff puts a ton of time into this, like Diana said, you know,
Funding shape.
but it's not useful because we're leaving big chunks out. Because if it's not
Yeah.
useful, then we should stop wasting your time doing it. But I think it's useful to
Yes.
us as policymakers so that we can better forecast out
Right. I
bonding
mean,
needs.
part of it is anytime you make a change, the you have to make changes in the program, and it's not as simple as it seems.
Right.
So it is just a big effort.
What is WSG?
West Side Garage.
Can I ask on the east side garage, I see rooftop solar, is that roof needing to be repaired and we're taking the opportunity to add solar, or are we just adding solar?
Let me see here. So they're not putting the solar on roofs that are in poor condition. So the roof has to be good for them to put solar. I don't know the details if that section is on, going on a roof that's new. They do have a re-roof project for the east side garage sewer shop, but I don't know if that ties into where the solar is going. But they would be putting solar on a roof that's in good condition. That's one of their requirements.
Okay, is this the first time we're starting to add solar onto buildings?
As far as our DPW buildings, I don't know if you have any, Dan, but Director?
No, we're adding one at the new JBS barn, but that'll be our first one with solar. Other than at Light Park, we have some rotating solar panels in the parking lot.
Okay, do we know how much we're gonna save with that, as far as utilities?
I don't have that information. I know it's coming out of the Clean Energy Plan initiatives, and it was one of the recommendations.
Focus on Energy usually does that analysis. I don't know if our staff works with them or if we even have the skills to do what they do. I'm not sure. But at least I know in the private sector, Focus on Energy will do the total analysis to tell you if you make this investment, you'll recoup the savings by year X.
I mean, I certainly can get you that information. I just don't have it here.
Okay, and then I just had a question on the sidewalks citywide program. I see for 2026, $395,000, and then it jumps up for the next 3 years, $720. What is that based on?
Bill?
That's me. Our sidewalks are in horrible shape. $300,000, which is what they were. How many feet of, or how many blocks of sidewalk will we get for $395,000?
Don't have it off the top of my head, but
Next to nothing, really.
yeah, we're far behind on the percent of sidewalks that we're doing every year.
Way behind.
It's
But
not
are
like,
Steve started.
sidewalks assessed to the property owner?
No, yes and no. The sidewalk is looked at by staff. If they determine that the damaged sidewalk is the city's responsibility, like say for a tree on the
Trees.
terrace, then they'll cover that. Then for the homeowner, he's got to cover everything else that isn't. What unfortunately they run into is a lot of pushback from sidewalks that people, like I had a constituent who bought a home, and a real estate agent said, yeah, just call your alder and get put on the list. Well, she got put on the list. She thought the city was going to pay for everything. So she found out what it was going to cost, and she had a fit. And the sidewalk replacement has been put off and pushed off and pushed off to the point where I've got sidewalks that are heaved over 6 inches. And they just finally repaired one. Well, they didn't repair it, they just put a sloping piece of asphalt there. The sidewalks are all tipping the water back towards the homeowners' homes because it's been so long. I mean, it's just, if you look at the pier as a program or in place where the sidewalks, they list, everyone has to replace their sidewalks in a paper, and they get done. But Green Bay hasn't developed a process, and even if we started forcing the homeowners to do it, we haven't been budgeting enough money to do our share. And it's expensive. I mean, a section goes for, I don't know what, last time I looked, it was close to $200, maybe more, for a cake.
It's more than that.
And it's much more than that now.
Do you have sidewalks up by you?
Not as many.
No, and that's
Which has
unfortunately
been
when they
some
started,
pushback.
when I got elected and I got Steve to start the program, and they started on the far east and west sides, well, yeah, there's no sidewalks or they're brand new
We don't
developments,
have
so they didn't need much. But as they moved into the center, everything's just been slowing down. And it's the center that really needs it.
Yes.
not the outlying areas. So I met with their staff, and they're trying to figure out a way to try and get more done. I have constituents that are consistently walking in the street because the sidewalks are in such poor shape. Children in strollers, the elderly, and when our streets are better than the sidewalks, that's saying a lot about the condition of, the inner city sidewalks. And that's west side, east side, it's age,
Director, somebody, I can't remember who, but had brought this up to me recently about the city maybe doesn't allow the grinding. Obviously, that's not gonna work on a 6-inch heave, but if it's out of compliance by a little bit, where grinding could potentially make sense, is that,
Yeah.
do we allow that or not?
I believe we do,
Yeah.
but it's, it has to be the right scenario. It has to be limited.
Right. And what I don't understand is with the city portion, or even what we're assessing to residents, right? If we're just, it's replacement or not, versus identifying candidates for grinding, right? That might allow us then to take the money we're authorizing and have it go further if we grind instead of replace.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a conversation about the grinding, and there is that option, but it has to be the right situation.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, I had a constituent on, he had a corner house. The city came through, he asked to have it done. The estimate was $5,000. That would have been his portion of it. And at that time, the city was very helpful in that they took pictures of each section. He got on the phone, they were on the phone in their office, and they looked at each section. And it's ADA compliant, which is grandma with the four-legged thing with the tennis balls shuffling down. So the pivots in the sidewalk, the cracks, all that kind of stuff can't have to be compliant. So he was able to get it down to $2,000 because he got a contractor to mud jack, shave, or fill in the divots with a compound, which reduced his costs. Now, I think the city has started doing that for instead of just replacing cakes outright, the city has started doing some of that on their part, haven't they, for their responsibilities?
I'm not sure about that.
All right, and that, again, is part of what you're looking into. But it's expensive, but if the city's working with the homeowner, they can reduce those costs significantly by doing some of those things instead of having to just carte blanche, we're gonna replace everything with brand new cement.
And I think it says that on the letter too that gets sent out, that they are needing to be replaced, the city can replace them, or you can hire your own contractor.
Actually, it's less expensive to have the city do it, because the city gets bids that if you were to go to a private contractor and have it done yourself, that was my experience when I had part of
Yeah.
my sidewalk replaced, was it was better to have the city do it.
No, I would agree with that too, when she got the estimates back.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, just one more. The thing that I noticed under parking utility that's missing, and I'm not sure when exactly it's going to be due, but the demolition of the Main Street ramp, is that 2030 or is that 2031? Somewhere in there.
Yeah, one of the two. We do have, there is an item in here for doing like the environmental assessment of the Main Street garage in anticipation of the demolition.
Okay.
So that is in here.
Yes, it's under the parking.
Under parking?
Mhm. Toward the bottom of that report.
Page 39.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just, again, if it's not within this five-year CIP, I just know it's kind of on that cusp, and that's an easy thing to miss, especially when you're new in your role. And
Okay. Yeah, no, the facilities manager did put, yeah, so it would be under parking utility, right? Parking ramp consulting services? Is that the one? I'm not seeing where it is, Diana.
Yep, I'm getting it actually.
But I know
It's
it's
right
in
here,
here.
it's, you have a $50,000 for parking ramp consultant services, $50,000 starting in '26. And then you have it continuing throughout as I'm sure you're gonna have to keep working through the process until there is a replacement plan.
and I'm sorry, I did have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
The elevator, that was in the budget? Is that, which ramp is that?
Hold on, let me get my notes here.
Yep, there's 200,000 for elevator equipment replacement.
That's for replacement of operating equipment in one elevator at Pine Street.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it wasn't the same Cherry Street repair we did, so different.
So this is the second, so it would be the second elevator that they're gonna repair in Pine Street.
Okay, good.
They're all aging, but they're doing like one per year.
Yeah. Okay. So on the Main Street piece, though, I would just say, you know, if it's meant to be in here, just drop it in there later, but if it's in 2031, you can just ignore it. I just can't remember when the development agreement called for that.
Yeah, it's like 2031, or then we have like 1 or 2 year grace period, you know, something
Oh, we
in the
do?
early
Okay.
30s. Yeah.
Okay.
We've been talking about a development team a couple times already, that is going to need to be demoed.
Okay, any other questions for the DPW section?
No?
It's a lot, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was,
Then on to
I love
Parks,
how it's
Director
laid out.
Najai.
Yeah, so I'll just touch bases on a few things here, and then you can ask whatever questions. So with our equipment and fleet, typically we're replacing just things that need to be replaced that are older than kind of the anticipated age limit. So whatever we're replacing or proposing to replace in this plan has exceeded its lifespan. There is only very minimal new equipment that we're proposing here. We have something called a mini track with attachments. That's a new one, so it's in essence a kind of a stand behind feature that you can take out into the field, and it's great for drilling holes. So for fence posts, for playground installations, that's very useful, things like that. So that's, we're proposing in 2026 for a new piece of equipment. Other than that, it's just replacing aging fleet and equipment that we have. We typically replace about 2 mowers per year in order to keep up with them. If we skip a year, it really hurts us, 7, 8 years down the road. Same with our trucks and equipment like that. We also have one in here that I just wanted to point out as kind of an odd one that you might wonder why we have it. So we have a Y-Track snowmobile being replaced in 2026 for $21,900. We have one snowmobile in our fleet or our equipment, and what we use that for is for grooming our cross-country ski trails. So we actually have a little piece of equipment that we attach to it, and that's how we groom them. And that snowmobile, I think, is over 25 years old, so it's getting up there, or it's getting hard to find replacement parts. When it comes to projects, I want to just touch bases on a couple here. One is playgrounds. So we used to have close to 60 playgrounds. I think that we're eliminating a couple of them as part of the property trade with the school district. I don't remember the total count right now, but what I always said in the past or previous years was we would have to replace 2 playgrounds a year to replace all of our playgrounds at a 30-year replacement cycle. So, if your playground's old, but it's only 20 years old, you still have another 10 years left, unless we start doing more than 2 playgrounds per year. Now, it might be a 25-year replacement plan because our number of playgrounds are going down, so it could be now if we do 2 per year, we're at about a 25-year replacement plan. So in next year's bond, what we're requesting is new playground at Fisk, and then a new playground at Beaumont. Now, Beaumont is considered a park school. Just want to kind of highlight that one. So last year, we actually bonded $75,000 towards that playground. Now that the school district is renovating that school and adding on to it, they're actually going to be chipping in some money to actually make it bigger and better than what we had envisioned. So now they would like to do kind of a bigger playground with rubberized surfacing None of our parks, with the exception of Bay Beach Amusement Park, has rubberized surfacing unless it's at a park school site. So right now, the school district said that they would chip in money, so we're anticipating it to be about a $400,000 project, of which the city only has $75,000. So we threw in another $60,000 to get closer to more of a 50-50 match, but that would be one where, you know, if you didn't want to fund it, we could have discussions with the school district of whether or not they could fund everything up to 400 minus the 75 that we've already funded. We do also for next year, in regards to projects, we do have a major renovation proposed for Joanne's Aquatic Center. So I don't know if you recall those conversations from a few months ago where we proposed a phasing plan for Joanne's Aquatic Center. What we're proposing here is funding to implement phase 1, and that is $2.25 million. What that would be for is to hire an engineering consultant to actually create the bid documents for whatever phase 1 is going to be. And then what we're asking funding for are several things. So one is replace all of the plaster in the basin, of the entire pool basin, and then also rebuild the gutters. So those are kind of the edges around the pool. The gutters are kind of obsolete. They don't use that technology anymore, and it's getting hard for us to find replacement gutter tops for them. So we really have to rebuild them because what we have is just aging out. And then the plaster, we've patched it numerous times. It's over 30 years old. We really have to replaster the entire basin because it's starting to pop up on us, and we're patching and patching and patching. It's time to just redo the whole thing. Other items we had in there, those are kind of necessities of what needs to be done, that if we don't do those and we break down during the year of operation, we may have to shut the pool down in order to do kind of emergency repairs. Because let's say a big chunk of plaster pops up in the middle of a pool season, there's not much you can do except for shut the pool down. So we're trying to be a little proactive and fix those things before we get to that situation. This is something I've been talking about for numerous years now, and it's kind of to the point where we really have to start seriously consider funding those repairs. But then in phase 1, we also had some other miscellaneous things in there, such as adding some new equipment in the zero depth entry area. If we're going to ever do that, it makes sense to do that before you replace the gutters and the plaster. And then I think we also had it in there for new chairs, lounge chairs and stuff like that. So that's what phase 1 is. So it really is primarily maintenance related, with the exception of adding a few new features to add some interest to the pool. But in general, it's basically maintenance oriented. The other thing I want to point out here is the park shop. So in next year's funding, we're requesting funding for a heated storage building for $100,000 next year, and then in 2028, $400,000. I just want to give you a little background to that. If you've ever been to the park shop, you'll see that we have very limited space there, and we have a lot of sheds all over the place. So whenever, you know, if the city had a house, or the RDA had a house that they were tearing down, we would ask them for the garage. And we would move the garage to the park shop just to have some inside storage for equipment and materials and whatever. What we're running into now is we have a lot of equipment that runs on diesel. And really, in order to have that equipment run efficiently, you really need that in a heated building in the winter time. Because if your diesel lines freeze up on you in a deep freeze, you won't be able to get your cars or vehicles started. Most of our forestry equipment is all diesel now for the most part, the larger pieces. And we just don't have enough indoor heated storage for diesel run machinery. So that's what we're really looking at, is adding kind of a larger kind of warehouse structure that we can heat and store large equipment in there. But we are running out of space at the park shop, and that's something that we're going to have to address. We're hoping to do a spatial needs assessment for the entire park shop, not just this one piece. Those are kind of big things that I wanted to touch bases on. I guess I don't know if anyone has any specific questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, remind me, what is the plan in the future for Joanne's Pool? I know we've been talking about doing a pretty big renovation of it. Where does that stand right now?
So right now, we have that split into, we have it designed conceptually with 3 phases. Phase 1 is kind of this maintenance piece of things. Phase 2 would be replace the slides. So if you recall, earlier this summer, at the beginning of the summer, we asked for contingency funds to do an emergency repair on the
Right.
slides for $75,000.
Okay.
We are anticipating that those repairs will give us a lifespan of about 5 years before we might run into major issues with those slides again. Again, those slides are 30-plus years old.
Sure.
So phase 2 would be to replace the slides 5 years from now. I don't know if that's even in the plan, because that might be 2031.
Yeah, it's 1.7 million.
Okay, so it is in there.
So is that part of this overall renovation we're gonna be doing?
Yeah, so that would be phase 2. Phase 3 is everything else. So that would be the lazy river and kind of the independent splash pad that's off to the side that can operate independently of the rest of the pool. So we can open it up early in the season and close it later. That's not in our 5-year CIP. That's a very large dollar amount to do that. And I'm sure that there's going to have to be some sort of a fundraising component to it. And those are all things that are maybe wants instead of needs. Those are things that the public really said that they would like at that facility. Those are improvements that we feel would definitely bump up attendance levels, because there aren't any other facilities in the area that have a lazy river.
Sure.
And this independent splash pad, more and more aquatic centers are starting to do that. I think Kimberly's new aquatic center just built that. So I mean, it's something that's kind of trending in that direction. But again, do we need that to operate our aquatic center? Not really. Those are kind of desires by the neighborhood that park staff would strongly encourage or support if the funding was ever granted, but those are pretty expensive endeavors.
Okay.
But to balance that with building to the right capacity where you become a regional destination, I still maintain we can reconsider the way we handle resident versus non-resident pricing, especially if you've got the right amenity, where the revenue
I
offsets
agree with you.
the investment even for the residents to enjoy, right? You got time to figure that out, but it's, like, my point is well, I agree it's a want, and I wouldn't necessarily prioritize that right now over streets, for example. If you've got an offsetting revenue source, I'm all in.
Yeah, the problem is pools are notoriously taxpayer subsidized, so it would be difficult to have a fee structure for that type of a facility that would pay for itself with the fees alone.
Yeah, and depending on what you're looking at too, I mean, if you're doing an outdoor thing that's 3 months versus creating
Yeah.
a year-round type of facility,
Yeah, if you're talking an indoor facility, it's another animal. Also, you know, what are you trying to build too? I mean, if you're looking at attractions like what they have at like Noah's Ark, that's a whole nother design component that we're not really considering. We're still looking at this as an aquatic center, not necessarily a destination similar to like Noah's Ark. So, and again, you'll make some additional revenue, but it's largely going to be taxpayer subsidized.
Sure. One question I had under Joanne's, I mean, you've got the funding in here as though the work's being done next year, but you also mentioned sort of the authorization for funding to do the engineering. What I want to make sure is that we're not bonding for something that we're not going to spend next year, because we do that enough, right? So is the work actually going to get done next year?
What we would do is if this funding gets approved, is we would hire a consultant as quickly as we can. Because again, we don't want to hire the engineer until we know how much funding is available to us, because they'll engineer something to our budget. So we kind of need to know, do you want to do these improvements to the splat, to the zero depth entry, or do you literally just want to do the plaster in the gutter and call it a day? Because that makes a big difference on the engineering documents. But to get to your point, we would hire a consultant very quickly, do the engineering to whatever budget we have, and we would put this thing out to bid so that construction would start immediately after the pool season, assuming we could make that work into like the bidding schedule and working with Public Works on that.
And so, rather than putting you in a rush, and I'm just trying to be pragmatic here, and of course, I know this isn't an actual bonding request in front of us, but does it make more sense to say, hey, we're gonna put the engineering number here in budget for the improvements in '27? Because we're not gonna be able to do everything that's outlined here in '26, that's the reality, right? So I just,
Yeah, what you run into then is we would not be under construction in the fall of '26 because the money wouldn't be allocated.
yep, and I understand that. What I'm suggesting though is if you had the funding for the design, right, and the engineering, so that way you just don't have to be in a scramble to do it. It can happen on a good pace. I
as
mean, can
long
this
as
thing
there's-
withstand another year?
As
essentially?
long as there's a commitment to fund X amount, because what we would hate to do, like I said, is engineer something for 2.25 million, but then in the end, we get 1 million. And then we kind of have to go back to the engineering plans and decide what to cut. And so there just would have to be some sort of a commitment from the city council of how much they'd want to put into it in 2027.
I mean, I think that's always possible. We did that with the fire station. I get the conundrum. I do. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I get two more. Dan, Lake Park's not in here?
It's not in here just because we're not asking for funding for it as part of it. We can add it in, but
Yeah, I think the intent of this, Director Ellenbecker, is that all capital improvement needs are in here and that the funding
Right.
sources are identified.
okay,
So obviously, we know what the funding source is.
Yep. We can add that.
Yeah, because I would put Lake Park Phase 1 and 2 in here, recognizing even with the, 3, I guess, 2 and 3, recognizing that Phase 3 would be based on the private fundraising campaign, 2 being the TID and the grant.
And then with that, we would probably also add shipyard too then also.
I think that's in here though, isn't it?
That might be in the planning one.
There's some of it in
Shipyard
here,
was under
yes.
DPW.
Yeah, tip 22,
Yeah.
5 million.
Yeah.
Shipyard Phase 2,
And then the other question that I had, Dan, and I know this because every time you guys have a personnel fill request, you remind us of this, the growth in Parkland and the maintenance needs haven't really grown. So I'm just speaking from personal experience when I've been down to the shipyard, and please know this is not an indictment on the department or the staff, because you're doing what you can with the resources you have. But the amount of goose poop down there, like I can't even walk, and I'm stepping in it. And that's not gonna be the type of $22 million investment that I want to represent. And so, understanding that Phase 2 will be under construction next year, but I would expect that something should probably be in here to capture the need for equipment, recognizing personnel will come in the budget, but equipment to ensure that we can properly maintain the facilities that we're creating, because there's nothing worse than spending $22 million on a facility or X number of dollars on any other of these facilities,
Yes.
but not be able to maintain them in a condition that creates longevity or incites a high degree of usage because people want to go there.
Okay.
Because like right now, I wouldn't even take my kids down there. And maybe that's because you're not maintaining it the standard that we would expect because Phase 2 is coming, but I just want to make sure that we're at least talking about the resources that are necessary to maintain the stuff we have.
Okay.
Any other questions? I had one small one. What is the mini track with attachments, new edition? 67,500?
That's what I discussed earlier. That's kind of a walk-behind unit on tracks, and you can drive in, and then it's able to dig holes. So it's good for fence post
Oh, okay.
installations, playground posts, stuff like that. Right now, we use kind of a handheld auger, which doesn't work real well.
Okay.
They're go-karts for by the park shop.
I know, I was like, are we getting like a cool track?
They have
Like
races and everything.
RC car racetrack? Sorry, tell the kids. Okay, anything else? Okay.
All right.
You're doing City Hall too?
Yep. City Hall.
Not a lot going on in 26.
No, not a lot going on in 26, so we do have money kind of set aside for 26 still, that's still pending.
Okay.
We still have money to, we have money in hand to replace the electrical, it just hasn't been out to bid yet. We have money in hand to do engineering, to redesign the mechanical system.
Okay.
And as far as what we're proposing for next year, the brick is getting old. We have to do some tuck pointing just to make sure that the mortar is kind of, in good condition so that it doesn't crumble away on us. So we have 75,000 in there to do some brick repair. And then we have some panels that need to be replaced next year. We have some service panels that we have to replace.
So it would be higher. You've already got the money though, so
For
work, like you were talking about with the electrical and that kind of
For
stuff.
the electrical, we have money set aside for
Yeah.
that, and for engineering, for the mechanical, there's
Okay.
money set aside.
Is that the same thing with 27? Because that's a little bit more, but still a lean year compared to the 28, 29, 30.
Yeah, and I guess the mechanical engineering one, that's just a placeholder, that might go away. Because like I said, we already set aside money, that just might be an error. I'll have to look at that one.
Okay.
That one should have been deleted possibly, since we have the money. I think we bonded for that last year.
Because the electrical's been a concern for a long, long time, right? And something that we've unfortunately been pushing off to the side, so it's good to see that's gonna get done.
I was gonna say, I think that 1.5 million has been borrowed for that already. It's
been borrowed.
it's in-house 24 and 25.
Okay.
So my only problem with City Hall, Dan, is in context of the security discussion that we've had, and this recently came up again, we had talked about renovations to first floor that we're not only going to improve security, but we're also going to make it more customer friendly. And we talked about adjusting even the way that our staffing is set up so that we can handle the vast majority of transactions for which people come to City Hall on the first floor. We've done some first floor improvements that seem piecemeal, and I don't see any first floor improvements in the 5-year plan. And I think at the last finance meeting, the one
Yeah.
before, I know we asked Joe to come back to us with an update. Is that an active discussion
What
going
I-
on?
what I
Because
can
a
tell
year
you
ago,
is we
we
do
asked
have
staff
a-
to come back with a plan.
We do have a staff meeting with the mayor scheduled for tomorrow to talk about that. So we will be coming back with some sort of a proposal. I don't yet know what that'll be because our staff meeting is tomorrow on it. And then, we'll have to amend this and fit that in somewhere depending on what's being proposed.
I think
Right
we
now,
need
I don't
to-
have something in here because I don't know really where we're at with that.
I would like to see, I think, a line item added for that. I understand that you may not have the amount, but the reason I want to see the line item added in that is because it does tie into some of the ongoing operational expenses that we're incurring right now. And that is, I know, going to become a discussion topic at budget time. But I do think the other piece of it is, if we're gonna take, again, the vast majority of transactions that occur all throughout City Hall right now and consolidate them, that's likely going to impact your operational budget too, whether it's training, personnel. But I mean, right now, when you think about collecting a parking ticket fees or picking up a basic permit or, a lot of those things that, reserving a park shelter, that should all be able to be done on first floor. But first floor is clearly not designed right now to accommodate that.
Correct.
And, to me, when I look at all the needs here, I personally would be prioritizing that over some of these renovations on floors, 2, 3, 4, 5. just because we've talked about, or at least we've been told, that security needs to be a high priority, but it doesn't feel like it's being prioritized. So that would just be my one thing is I think we need to have a line item in there and really kind of get, even if it's allocation for funding, but this was part of what ad hoc committee was working on, and I've had Director Ellenbecker some recent conversations with fire chief, police chief. I do think we need to bring that committee back together too, because we've got some big investments in fire and police ongoing here with the city hall, especially if we bring in the first floor stuff. I think it's a good time to bring that group back together to really talk about how those different experts can help make sure that we're guiding some good decisions around some pretty substantial CIP needs. Because I think they can look at it differently, and this is, again, not meant to be, I'm going to use the word again, that's not meant to be an indictment on any particular person, but I think sometimes when we can look at things holistically, right? If you're, I'll pick on the police chief since he's not here. If you're the police chief, you're going to be really concerned and focused on what I need for the police department. You're not necessarily concerned about how can I offset the cost for the police department if I bring in a housing component or a commercial component, right? And I think that's, to me, what the committee, the value that the committee can bring is how can we offset some of that substantial expense? And the chief may very well be looking at that, so if he's listening.
So more to come on that.
Good.
Any other questions? All right, then I will entertain a motion.
I think we just
Just receive, place on file.
hold it, or do you want us to rescind place on file?
Probably, any action, if you have direction that you want done and then brought back to show that it's been done. Otherwise, I would recommend the changes and suggestions that you made, potentially have them updated, and then I'm gonna pull together a final, a final book for us to put on our website so that at least every 5 years, because 5 years ago we had a book that this would be our 5th year to have another book put out at least on our website. So at least receive and place on file, or with a few amendments like adding security, adding some additional parks, maybe update a couple more line items.
The only thing I'm struggling with though is, we did this for the other departments last time too,
Yeah, we
right?
have.
And now
Yes.
it's like bringing all that together. And I do wonder, what's your timeline for making all those amendments?
At this point, unless we think there's capacity in to take something down to here and put an operating budget, or operating budget and put something on here, I don't plan to finalize this until we are done coming out November when we're at budget time. At that point, we could bring through our bonding request. I would plan to do it right after budget. So at that point, we would start bringing our bonding requests through so that by early I would want to wait till 2026. But at that point, then we could start doing our bonding requests so that the sooner we get our money in, the sooner the projects can get done in 2026.
And here's why I'm just hesitant to just approve this, because, right, I'm looking at $87 million of projects. We have other funding sources at almost $33 million. That's suggesting that the rest would have to be closed by bonding, right? So that's 50-some million dollars. It's not a realistic CIP.
Yeah.
And I'd rather get this to be a realistic CIP and make it a useful document. And so I would prefer to maybe hold, let you make some adjustments, and,
Review again.
Review again, yes.
well, and again, I don't want to keep just kicking the can, right? Because again, we're not doing 50-some million dollars of bonding, we know that, but for us to just accept it and acknowledge that that's what's in 26, to me, doesn't make it a useful document, especially for
No.
the public. But I also, this is worse than a budget for us, right? To be able to say, oh, we're not going to do that, we're going to move that into that year. You have to rely on staff and the mayor to some extent to help us prioritize the urgency of some of these things.
Yeah, because the way it is right now, we will not be able to use 26 column to do our 26 bonding request.
Right.
It will have to be that minus some items, and whether you want to help hone that list now, or you wait until the mayor and finance comes back and says, well, we've taken now, general levy right now, I think it's at about 23, 24 million. We wanted 17, we're gonna have to fund 5 to 6 million, we're gonna try to push out. We also have 7 or 8 million in there for fire stations and police stations. within the next month, whether or not that's a realistic number we need for 2026, we may modify that number. And then, of course, that includes some additional borrowing for TIFs. TIFs already are 9.5 million of that. And, there might be some sanitary store and parking in there. It may not be, I would have to verify what their funding sources are, but.
And I don't think
yes.
this needs to be a perfect document, but I think it should probably be a little more precise than what we have now, and
There
so.
were recommendations at last meeting and this meeting, so we could bring the document back, we could continue to modify it. Again, we also know it's a point in time, right? The minute you put this,
Yeah.
it changes every day.
Does it make sense for us to almost adopt this with the budget, do you think?
Like at the same meeting?
Yeah, but I'm-
Absolutely, that would been a recommendation to bring them through, a lot of municipalities to bring them through at the same time. They're just such a large document, both a budget and a CIP. Do you want to tackle them at a same meeting?
I think we've kind of tackled it in a way. right?
Correct.
Given our feedback, so that
Yep.
really when you bring forward the bond request, then the 26 CIP at least could more accurately capture what's in the bond request.
Okay,
Right?
yep.
And the prioritizations of the budget
Yeah.
for next year.
So I would make a motion to hold and bring this back with the budget and bond requests, making adjustments, noting what we're actually going to make a bond request for.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Really appreciate the time that, staff has taken to do this. This, to me, again, is an incredibly helpful document, so thank you.
All right, informational 2025 contingency account, 25,000. Next meeting is October 14th, 2024. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.